Hi, I'm DuEwa Frazier, and you're listening to episode 46 of Nerdacity Podcast. And my guest is Raina J. León, PhD. She is a Black Afro-Boricua poet. She is from Philadelphia. She is a mother, daughter, sister, madrina, partner, poet, writer, teacher, and educator. She believes in collective action and community work, the profound power of holding space for the telling of our stories, and the liberatory practice of humanizing education. She seeks out communities of care and craft and is a member of the Carolina African American Writers Collective, Canem, CantoMundo, Macondo. She is the author of Canticle of Idols, Boogeyman Dawn, Sombra, Dislocate, and the chapbooks, Profeta, Without Refuge, and Areyto to Atabey, essays on the mothering self. She publishes across forms in visual art, poetry, nonfiction, fiction, and scholarly work. She has received fellowships and residencies with the Obsidian Foundation, Community of Writers, Montana Artists Refuge, Macdowell, Kimmel Harding Nelson Center for the Arts, Vermont Studio Center, the Tyrone Guthrie Center in Anamakerrig, Ireland, and Ragdale, among others. She is a founding editor of the Artists Refuge, an online quarterly international journal devoted to the promotion and publication of Latinx art. She educates our present and future educators, as a full professor of education at St. Mary's College of California. Only the third Black person, all Black women, and the first Afro-Latina to achieve that rank there. Raina is additionally a digital archivist, emerging visual artist, writing coach, and curriculum developer. Her latest book is Black God, Mother This Body. I hope you enjoy this episode. Raina, your latest book is beautiful, titled Black God, Mother This Body. It is, I understand, your fourth collection of poetry, and you do have two other chapbooks, but this collection was recently Freighter Press. And I would love to talk about the cover art, the beautiful cover art for this collection and how it fed into the themes and inspiration for your work.
Absolutely. So the cover art was created by a beloved friend of mine, Amy Law, who is a talented graphic designer, artist herself. And we've been friends for a long, long time. Our babies are our oldest. Are about the same age, and every cover from previous collections was a different process, right? For my first collection, I literally got a piece of mail with the art of Joanne McFarlane, and I was like, that is my cover. That is absolutely it. And it was reaching out to her, we're both Canem people, to see if she would be willing to have that piece of art on my first collection. With this piece, from Amy, she created it specifically for the book, and she asked me to read my manuscript so that she could be inspired, created a number of different possible looks, and was in conversation with me around dimensions, around color schemes. She took pictures of light pole, and then all the layering, and then added an image on top of that, and then was inspired by batik and inspired by the references to the cosmic and the celestial and the creation of the body and the mothering experience. And it was just this beautiful referencing and care for my work, because I knew in the art, I knew how closely she kept me and how much she saw me in the work. It was so clear how thoughtful she was in so many of the themes within the book. So, and just like the notion of play as well, that's all throughout the book too. I think she captured really well within the piece.
Indeed. And it really draws you, pulls you in. It's like your poems to the cover, and because your poetry also just gives such rich imagery and emotion, I would say, in terms of just, going into the journey and experience of the mother. And I think of it in so many different ways. We have Mother Earth, and then we have, our human forms as, human mothers, and then energies. And I feel like your collection really does a wonderful job in showing us the various depths of motherhood and birthing, and women as, I could be saying this wrong, but how we labor, and not just birthing babies, but birthing and laboring for so many things in this world.
Absolutely. And I love that you bring up all these different things around mothering, which of course is within the title, but there's also the mothering of self and the healing, and creating the space for the flourishing of the self, so that the mother can become mother and can offer that healing and that centering to those to come, whether biological children or just those to come. There's a poet and conceptual artist, writer, a community organizer, Natasha Marin, who is an incredible visionary, and she created this campaign called reparations.me, and has also did a wonderful social media holding of a shared meditation on Black joy. Anyway, in reparations.me, she talked about how the most vulnerable among us are generally Black women, especially Black mothers. And that made me understanding that also connects me to this work of I worry about how the work will be received, because it is so rooted in Blackness and mothering and women's bodies and labor. When I think that Bell Hooks talked about centering us.
Excuse me.
Oh no, are you okay?
Yes, that was a sneeze. Oh my gosh, I'll try to edit that out.
Bell Hooks talks about with margin to center theory of centering the most vulnerable among us, and the possibilities and prospering that can happen when that happens. What would change if we centered Black mothers and children? I don't know, but I can dream about all the visionings and villages that might be created.
I love that. Oh my gosh. I'm going to hold on to you put that out there in the air, and I'm grabbing it, Raina. I'm going to set it aside because I want to come back to that because I have a question that may well relate to that. And so that's mind blowing. What would happen? Wow. If did you say put women and children, Black women and children first?
Yes.
Prioritize them?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it changes so much. Oh my gosh. Okay, Raina, we'll come back to that, okay? Please don't forget. Okay, so Raina, you are extremely accomplished. I just had such pride reading your biography and going to your university bio, your website. I watched some YouTube videos of you reading your poetry for the MOAD Poet in Residence series, which was wonderful. You have so much going on, really great things, such richness in your life, from your work as an educator to being a poet, and also a digital archivist, emerging visual artist, writing coach, and curriculum developer. And we will dive back into your poetry collection, but I just wanted to know, in terms of folks listening and curious more so about your foundation and what inspires you and what drives you, how are you able to balance and wear, your different hats, and how does your work as an educator somehow impact or influence your creativity and your writing life?
So first, I want to say thank you for doing all that research and watching those who are like, oh, what is that Moad video? You probably watched the one where I was literally holding my baby at the time, now my 4-year-old son.
Purchasing motherhood, and you were talking about, how you get on the Amazon and you're like, yeah, I'm looking for the best pacifier, right. I'm looking for the best stroller. That was some of that. I was actually chuckling. I was like, this is hilarious, but I get it. Like,
absolutely. If I do the right thing, I will be the best mother ever.
Yes, I hear you, girl.
Well, and I appreciate that recording because it is one where my son is a part of it, right?
Yes, I hear him in the background, by the way.
Literally a part of the reading. And I also really appreciate you noticing like all these accomplishments and you speaking to, I feel proud, like you feel proud in what I have been able to accomplish. And I love that because it acknowledges that, I all that we do, all that I have done, I did not do alone, and I did not do it for myself alone. And I really appreciate that that is witnessed, that the pride and the joy and the accomplishment along the way is not for me only. It is for we.
And I understand that. And I want to say to you, as a woman, as a Black woman and a woman of color, a fellow woman of color, a fellow Black woman, that when I said I felt proud and I felt proud of you, also knowing that all of this that you've done and to get where you are was not easy.
Absolutely.
Because I know some of that journey and I'm going, wow, she's amazing. And, bless you, because I know that, you reach full professor, that's a journey in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's I looked once at the education statistics at the time, and the representation for Black and especially Black and Latinx women faculty and the professorate at the full professor rank was like less than 0.05%, probably less than that.
Right.
So it's wild, right?
Yes. And so you're in that list.
I know. Hold open doors.
Represent, as they say, represent, you're representing,
right. Well, and your question about balance. So I do see myself as having twin vocations. I am called to be a creative and to be an educator. Those are my callings in this life. And so the balance between them, some might say, okay, I have a particular path as an educator, and this is my whole wrapping around this. Or as a writer, for me, it is both. And so I was just thinking to myself about but I'm a poet as well within the educator space. So
right.
I was thinking to myself about this one student years ago. He's now a very, very successful teacher. And when he was in his teacher preparation program, folks were like, oh, have you seen his notebook? And I'd be like, nah, I don't know what you're talking about. And he'd be quoting me. He had pages of quotes. And I was like, why are you quoting me? Like, I didn't know I was coming to order. Like, what's going on here?
Yes.
But he was writing down the poetic wisdom of I think the poet as being in the world has a capacity to get to the heart of the matter and find the truth, right? And share that truth. And in this way, the heart of the matter was like the core of education, what one should value as an educator, which I think is heart work. It's around community work, and talking about the educator as community organizer, not just as sage on the stage at a distance from people.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing about the writer or the creative. Like, we are community organizers. We're part and parcel of the community itself. We record, we witness, and we also help to vision, help to create. And I think that both sides, the educator and the creative, have that capacity of recording, of witnessing, as well as creating. So the balance is in recognizing the complexity of those roles.
Beautifully stated. And do you find also that when your students or even other emerging poets ask you for advice, that they are asking for, how do I get through the schooling and the academic journey?
Yeah.
In addition to, studying my craft, is that often something that comes up?
Oh, absolutely. And I've definitely been the professor who's like, okay, let's map out your schedule for the day. When are you
Right.
going to sleep? When are you walking? When are you eating? Because sometimes I have to map that out for myself, right? Oh, yes. If I keep doing it on this schedule, I'm never going to sleep. And sleep is very important. I can't dream if I don't sleep.
That's right.
And at the same time, the balance is all other things will unfold and they will happen as they do. But if you're not true to yourself and you don't know who you are, then none of those things will happen. And so I often talk to students about, like, why is it that you are going on this path? Whether as a creative or as an educator, those are the communities that I generally connect with. And if it does not have to do with holding space for the flourishing of others, or working in connection with your own blossoming, then why are you here? So,
right.
Because there are so many other things in the world where you can give. If you want an audience, you can find an audience. You don't need to be a teacher to have that, for example. So, like finding one's purpose and being clear about how one shares that purpose and that light with others, the balance will come from there. I also help folks, because it's something that I work on myself, around boundaries. Boundaries are gold. They're beautiful.
No, so true, really. And I see, as in your bio, with being a writing coach, I can kind of hear that in your words as being very encouraging and talking about the having balance and the time management. Is that a part of your work as a coach?
Oh, absolutely. And people say, because on occasion on social media in particular, I'll do a tracking of all the things I do in a day. And folks will sometimes say, I just looked at your list and I needed to take a nap. It was a little bit too much.
Wow.
A little bit too much for me. What are you doing? And I'll be like, yeah, but I was so alive when I was doing this thing. I was so excited about it. And I tell people all the time, like when I'm doing Zoom workshops and everything, and I come on and folks are preparing like they're super low energy and I'm just bouncing all over the place. And I'm like, this is me all the time. Like this is my energy all the time. And the way that I preserve that is I have rituals for getting me ready for things. I have boundaries around the structures of my time. DuEwa, today, tomorrow, I'm going to even have this, I wrote this beautiful, this loving away message that is just going to be my standard. and in the away, it's just going to be, it's going to be on my email from now on, because we're getting into late autumn and the beginning of winter, hibernation time. And
wow.
and messages, I love you so much. And it is falling, and it is time for me to reflect and give space for dreaming. That is what the winter is for.
Wow.
And so if you don't get a message from me in an hour like I'm used to, like I usually do, but it might be 72 hours, that's why I love you. I love you so much.
Exactly. Well, hey, that sounds like poetry in itself. Most people are just back to the office on this date. That's it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, at least you're, giving the people something to think about and something to reflect on, and okay, maybe I need to take a little time to reflect too.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And also offering to others the joy of that, right? I'm going into reflection. That doesn't mean that I don't care about the offering, the invitation that you're sending to me right now. It's just I'm not going to be immediate in my response to that. And the time when we will meet is the time when we will meet, and it will be the right time.
Oh, I like that. And so, Raina, you're also founding editor, or one of the, I want to say, co-founding editor of Acentos Review.
I co-founded the Acentos Review with Elia Lucero in 2008, and we've been going almost 15 years.
Yay!
Co-editing for the first two, and I've had some co-editors along the way, but I've definitely been the stable influence. I pay the bills. I make sure the issues come out on time.
Wow. And so, tell me about that work. What inspired that, and how have you been able to, persevere? As you say, it's 15 years now, which is amazing. For a literary publication, especially being founded independently as you all did. And so what has that been like for you?
It's been amazing. It's an incredible gift, and I have to say, as an editor, especially now that I'm starting to enter into the world again, with great precaution and care, we're still in a pandemic,
right?
But I've always loved meeting people that I've published along the way. So we started as an outgrowth of the Essential Poetry Showcase, which was a series in the Bronx that started in 2003 with Oscar Bermeo and Fish Vargas. And I moved to New York just a few months after they had started. And I read this poem on the open mic, and I was invited to feature, and that was the beginning of my long relationship with the Essentials Bronx Poetry Showcase.
Wow.
Doing workshops, and a foundation started. And I have been bugging people for years, pretty early on, like, we need our own journal. There aren't that many places that publish things in English and Spanish or Spanglish. Spaces for Latinx folks. We need our own space. And folks were like, yeah, Raina. And I'm bugging. And in 2008, the Essentials Foundation started. It didn't last as an organization for very long, but that's when Rich Viard reached out to me and was like, so that idea that you've had, I think you should do it. And Eliel Lucero has been really interested in the same idea. How about y'all work together? And by then I had moved to Germany. I was living in Germany.
Wow. I
moved from New York to North Carolina to Vegas, and then to Germany. And I was like, well, we can't do anything print because I'm out of the country and I don't know how to be here. So
right.
Line, right? And at that time, especially 2008, online publication, this is pretty at the cutting edge for a lot of things.
Right.
And we were publishing, and we continue to publish art and poetry and fiction, nonfiction, translation, reviews. We even published a gift collection at one point. All sorts of really trippy things along the way. And in that 15 years, we published over 900 Latinx voices.
Wow, that is amazing. Congratulations. Wow.
Nobody can touch that history. And
I'm saying.
And the representation, I'm real proud. I did this whole analysis of our gender representation, our representation of queer folks that identify by bios and such, and doing comparisons to things like, Granta or poetry or New York or whatever. Art is so far off the charts for folks of disenfranchised, historically marginalized, systemically marginalized communities. In comparison, it's the Essentials Review is doing the work.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, I said that was definitely on my list. I said I have to ask Raina about Essentials Review because I've been years. And I honestly did not know you were I hadn't dived in enough to know, Raina is one of the founding editors, but it all comes together and it all makes sense now reading so much about your work and everything you've been doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the projects that I'm starting like this month, which is why I'm putting up that away message, is an anthology that to recall, to hold the last 15 years, our quinceañera, right? Like,
wow,
gotta have a quince. So
yes.
15-year anthology that'll be published by Nomadic Press. And
major.
yeah, yeah, I'm super excited about that.
And so I know you're going to have some really nice readings, hopefully maybe some virtual readings, that people can attend.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm already starting to dream into what that will look like for the spring and the fall. So.
Oh, that's amazing. And so let's see, Raina. So another question I have for you is, you did mention the pandemic and that you're slowly kind of getting out and seeing what's what, but you're understanding and acknowledging that, yeah, we're still in something. And so I'm curious about your writing, and if you're writing at all, or any of your creative pursuits were impacted or influenced in some way by the pandemic, especially during the time that we were kind of like in a lockdown.
Yeah.
So it's a question I've been asking a lot of my guests. And so I'm just curious about that.
Absolutely. So when we entered into lockdown, I had just gotten the news that I had been granted full professorship.
Wow.
Yeah. And I treat for myself. I bought myself a piano and I started piano lessons.
Oh, I love that. I thought you were going to say, I bought myself a new car and
I bought myself a piano.
Okay.
And the piano spot was like around the corner from my house in Berkeley. So the day that we shut down, all the businesses were closing. I was like, it's supposed to be delivered that day.
Oh,
I made it happen. So I got this delivery.
You did get it? So you got the
piano? I did. My piano. The other thing around the lockdown, the initial lockdowns, as well as the beginning of the pandemic, was I was very, very pregnant. My daughter was born in that May.
Wow.
And so the pandemic also had a different kind of isolation for me, because early on, and there's a poem in the new book, Black God Mother This Body, that talks about that experience of the fear as a mother who is about to give birth when of course, there wasn't a vaccine. And if you had been identified as having COVID, there was talk at that point of automatic C-section, which was not like my birth plan.
Right.
Separated from your child for up to 2 weeks. Like all these things immediately at birth.
Right.
So I had a lot of fear, and my lockdown was total isolation for me. And then I got sick and had to go into the emergency room and gave birth in a hospital, which was also not my birth plan, of having COVID. Ultimately, I didn't have COVID, but I was treated as such.
As such, yeah.
And so there were so many different fights that I had to have, including a fight to not be tortured with that I didn't need, or a fight to eat, to have food while I was in the hospital. So all these things, and many of those stories came through in the book.
Wow.
A lot of the writers were there.
I wondered was some of the poetry, if it were somewhat, autobiographical.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, definitely there are a number of, because, within any poem, there is the poetic eye, which is influenced by the creative, imaginative work of the poet, as well as possibly maybe parts of their life or the lives of others. So yeah, that's why people are like, and the speaker of the poem, right?
Right.
As nobody ever wants to say, did that happen to you?
Like that really happened, right?
Is this your story? And for a lot of the book, there is a lot that is quite autobiographical. Yeah.
So Raina, you don't have to say, but there are two poems in particular that I found myself really like, wondering about. And that, well, there were several, but two of them off the top was Suspect and Mother Fear. Those really like hit me, and I could just feel the, just I could see a woman going through some of this, like it felt real, especially reading Suspect. So that's why, but you don't have to tell me, but that's why I was kind of wondering, like, wait a minute, you went through, you had a labor during the pandemic, so it kind of, it makes sense. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And both have aspects of my story, right? And especially within, so my children, to have my children, it required science. Like there were many tests and invasive procedures and all sorts of fertility processes that had to. And so for me, my mothering experiences also goes alongside experiences of medicalized racism and a discounting, a distrusting of my own body.
Wow.
And that alongside my daughter was born just 2 days before George Floyd was killed.
Oh my goodness.
So the day I come home from the hospital, I'm starting to see stories about his murder.
Yep.
So it's
him. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm like, I got this new baby and there's a pandemic. We can't go outside. There are car parades happening down the major thoroughfare right next to my house. Usually I would be at that protest, but I got this baby who I got to protect. Like,
right.
This is my protest. I got to keep her and my son and we alive.
Right.
And at the same time, I'm also reading about another killing of a Black person. Another, and right. So
right.
And that fear that there's a line in one of the poems that, every door has a possibility of a splinter. Every door holds that possibility. Doesn't matter what you do, just living, right? Just sleeping.
Wow.
So, that's definitely a tension within the book.
And you're very intuitive in this discussion, because right after my question about the pandemic and writing and your creativity, I was going to ask you about social justice and what your thoughts were on, we've seemed to have twin pandemics, as many people have said, not only pandemic of illness, of the body, but, just societal ills related to racial injustice and so much, violence and brutality and just, pure mayhem. And so I also, a similar question, how did that impact your writing, your creativity, or even your mothering, just the journey of mothering, as you mentioned, mothering the self and mothering others, your children, your students. What did that do in terms of an impact on your life?
It's so vibrant and alive and countering of the culture of despair and death. But I'll say this around, like, there are the poems that speak to that volatility, right? These twin pandemics, as well as their cost within my mothering experience, the mothering experience, the body and the community around, even to the point of corrupting the dream space. There are a few nightmares within the book too. And I recognize that my work as a mother and as a being is to struggle against the loss of joy, to struggle for our community, our interconnectedness, to struggle for wonder. And so I prioritize with my babies, like the world is messed up, and like, let's talk about advocacy. And it pains me so greatly when I see them impacted by racism, and that's been happening since they were babies, and they're still babies. And my daughter, right?
Yeah.
At a different level, because I can take a lot of things, but to see it on my babies is a whole nother level. That all said, I was talking there was a teacher, and I asked a question about like an early childhood education around cultural representations and diversity and so on. She was like, well, the little ones don't know as much. We like gently introduce difference. And I was like, that's pretty naive.
Oh yeah, they know a whole lot.
They know so much. At 18 months, my son, I still remember this, the light. I remember the light of the day, and him coming up to me and pressing my arm and saying black, even though he knew his colors. He knew brown and green and all the colors. And he said black because he knew that is not just a color, it's actually identification. And I said,
wow.
Yeah, mommy is black and you are black, and isn't that wonderful? And he like nodded and then toddled along with the rest of his day. He was 18 months. He knew exactly what he was talking about.
Wow, that's deep.
And to not, for early childhood or anybody to not recognize, like, there is such an awareness of young people, of the youngest among us, of richness of culture and possibility and connection and like delight in all the people that walk into the room with us who aren't even in the room because they're influencing our cultures, right?
Right.
It is naive at best and a harm at worst. So yeah, I think a lot about these things.
But your children are being, you are, I always think beautiful and how lucky for children to have parents who are creative, who are educated, who are literate. It just like opens their world up that much more, makes it, for their genius to come through and their intelligences. And, so that's not, so I'm hearing you talk about your son, and I'm like, you know what? I believe it, because he came from you.
Yeah.
And, and I'm sure you're, talking to him all the time, to both of your kids, and their mom is a professor. Like, crap, like one day they're going to realize like how deep that is.
And I have to offer this story. So my daughter is an infant, and it's June, and the protests are starting to happen, calling attention to the murder of George Floyd, and also like a time of reckoning and reconciliation, absolutely, in our times. That's happening. And I am also doing the Black Feminist Breathing Course, which is a course that Alexis Pauline Gumbs created. Incredible community activist, organizer, artist, scholar, independent scholar. She had this course where every day she drew on Black feminists, creative scholars, artists, one quote that you would repeat as a mantra. And it was like 88 times as I remember it. And every day was a different person. So Octavia Butler was one day, Toni Morrison might be one day, June Jordan, Audre Lorde, every day. And I'm every day of this whole month of June, this shared meditation, I'm holding my daughter as I'm breathing in the words of these Black feminist leaders and thinkers and visionaries. That is how we began. And my daughter is one of the most independent, clear-sighted 2-year-olds you would ever. I think it was because of that beginning. I think it was.
Wow. I can believe it. She's going to be ready for a podcast interview very soon, Raina.
Maybe. With her own little invented language.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And so I imagine you're, just apart from what we were just talking about, but I kind of just imagine that you're, collecting all the great like children's books and the books, and you're, getting all of that for your children. Do you do that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And we do that. And we have these wonderful conversations around culture and food and, A is for activist.
Oh, I love that.
And even my children's lullabies are like I created one for my son, and it translates into like our people, like the Leóns are marching. We're marching to the strike to protect people. Right? Like,
okay.
That's how we start.
Wow. So he already has, his the ideals of freedom and equality, and they already have that in their minds and in their souls.
Exactly. And that's how they go to sleep.
That's amazing. Now, wait, do you have the red, black, and green flag in their rooms at all, on the walls or anything?
You know what? I don't, but obviously I am remiss.
Because I was going to say, I can, it's happening.
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of pride in our household. And, my kids are, so we're Black and Puerto Rican on my side, and my husband is Italian. And so we have all these different languages. We have like all these cultural conversations, and even when it's like, okay, this is actually a cultural disconnect here, like let's explore.
Right.
Which is a delight. And I think because we have such openness and conversation to like pinpoint miscommunications and so on. But I think that that's actually the work of the work to come, is exploring that DuEwa. So let me tell you, this book just came out. I'm so excited for it. I'm touring. I'm sharing the work. It's a hard book, and there's some lightness. And right now, I have decided to fully throw myself into creative practice. And what am I doing this month? This National Novel Writing Month. I'm writing a werewolf romance. And the werewolf romance is all multicultural characters from all these different ethnicities. And
I love it.
I'm even writing mythology and of their peoples. It's wild. I'm just, because it's just for fun, right? Like I've never written a romance before. I've never written long fiction before, because I've had goals but never completed.
What about stories with werewolves? Have you written those?
No. I read a lot.
Okay.
But and of course, I was talking to my mom the other day, who's a frequent collaborator of mine. My mom is, I'm a legacy, so she's also a former full professor. And
oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, but I was telling her about this book, and I was like, oh, mommy, because it's me, there's also like some touches of feminism in there, and it's woman centric, and this and the other. It's a lot of fun.
So there's a feminist werewolf in the story?
Absolutely. She's an artist. Manifesting artist. What she draws becomes reality. So fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Stretching the imagination, and wow, it sounds like you're creating some new, writing prompts.
Well, you know what? I love that you brought that up, because it's actually what I do a lot for my writing students. So for the Speakeasy Project, I've been teaching with them for a really long time. And a few years ago, created this course, which is an accountability course, where folks would get 1 to 2 writing prompts a day for a month. And all the writing prompts are like, they'll reference text, watch a video with Betty Saar, or watch this video with Alvin Ailey, I want to get ready. Write and respond that. And then the writing prompts are also couched within like a little bit of my story, because I think that can be really inspiring for people to be like, okay, this is how I'm making sense of this text, and now here's a question for you to answer in your creative practice. So I have a newsletter, and like the last time I did it, I was like, so if you send me an email and you want the prompts, I'll add you to the prompt list. You'll get one a day for a week. And
oh, wow. That's amazing.
So, people who want to find me, like, and want the prompts, I'll send them a week of prompts.
Okay. That is cool. It's like your own, MFA program, led by Dr. León.
Yes.
So,
I wish I could do that. It's a dream of mine. I had this conversation with the poet. He's a San Francisco poet laureate, Tongo Martin, many years ago, and about like creating our own MFA, creating our own institution that would not harm us, would actually be in a space of like true flourishing for peoples who have been historically marginalized and are culturally enriched.
There you go. And I know Tongo, and I've interviewed him on the podcast as well. And I know that if anyone can do it, you both can, because I know that Tongo is a real force in his community. And he's doing some great work there, and you've already made a Centos Review happen, and so many other wonderful works that you have. So it's really nothing but a word at this point, Raina.
Well, hey, you never know. Like I say it enough and it happens, right? And
right.
I was looking at some of your guest lists, and when I had told people about this on social media, and I'm tagging all these different people, and folks are like, "Oh yeah, I would teach a class on gardening. I teach a class on this. I teach."
Oh, I love it.
So like a true community coming together, and creative practice is not just words on a page. Creative practice is creativity. We're tapping into the spark of life. So
that's right.
Of course, there would be a gardening class. Of course, there would be an herbal practitioner class. Of course, there might be like an acupuncture class, whatever it is. But
right,
the creative spark of life, like you got to have a lot of different things in the mix.
That's true. That's so very true. And what a blessing it is to be a part of this community.
Yeah.
So many diverse, genius minds and brilliant ideas, and people who come from so many different regions and backgrounds, and who just, all of that mixing in the pot, just what that power and culture and impact can do, for anything that the community should, come up with.
Absolutely.
And so, Raina, hear more about your work, and specifically, do you have any poems that you like to share with our audience?
Absolutely. I actually think that I'm going to share the book has an early beginning with a long lyric essay, and I'm going to share pieces from that and maybe some pieces of poems. I should say this one thing about the book, which I don't talk about enough, is I'm always very interested in tech stuff and integration of multiple disciplines. So the book has archives embedded within digital collages, but the collages are also cueing images. So if you have an app called Halo AR and you hold the phone to the book, then pop, a video pops up, or pop audio, or pop, there's an interview with me. And the whole purpose is to actually change those texts in augmented reality every season. So the book is like always in process. It's always relational. And they're not super defined things. Like one is a 3-second video of a 3-dimensional altar. But throughout the book, there are these scattered cueing images that are very much relational to my ancestors. So I'm going to read this from this longer essay, pieces of it, which explores the relationship with one of my aunts.
Thank you.
I've been thinking about Oshun recently. How often others focus on the stories of her beauty, her sensual sway like river water, her laugh a tinkling bell. Still, her words can burn, and her laugh can fill a room at the most inappropriate of times. She is over the top in extravagance and devotion. Recently, an Olorisa reminded me that Oshun reminds us of self-sacrifice. There are Pataki that describe her transformation into a bird when all the world was burnt. Who in her rise to the sun, she burns to black. And in her sacrifice, she saves the world. Her blackness leads to life and fertility and balance for all. She saves the world. She is beauty in every facet and in how she releases her body's bulk to the aim of love. And so with the distance of time, I ask myself, how do I conjure Oshun? How do I learn? I think it must come from Titi. Is memory the dance of mourning and love that survives long enough to bloom? I love you, I love you, I love you. I release pain from this love. There's a moment that I never forget. I am at my grandmother's house in the projects in Philadelphia. There's the perpetual scent of arroz con gandules in the air, as there always seems to be in a Boricua house. There are women, Titi, my mother, my grandmother. I have this feeling that my grandfather is there too, but his form is a shadow at vision's edge. Merengue plays and Titi says to me, do you know how to dance merengue? It's just like walking. 1, 2. And she rises from her patterned couch to dance. And then her arms reach down to hold me. Though I cannot walk, I dance. Her hands keep me in balance. At my grandmother's wake, Titi watches me as I watch her. We perform as grief puppets. Grief wears us in its theater. Childhood trauma and uncertainty always squelches emotional profundity in me. Though earlier in the day, I had laid hours in a fetal position, shaking a bed in a room with weeping. To see me in that moment at the wake, it was as if watching myself on television. You would have thought that a wake was an entirely mundane place and time. I laughed and made jokes, gossiped with family members, and embraced so many gathered. As in my grandmother's hospital room, nearly 30 people always around her, moving in shifts, we Boricua rolled deep. Her body in the casket, there are hundreds of us buzzing. The matriarch dead, Titi will be next. I move with lightness at the wake. It could not possibly be a shattering. I perform that I have it together. I perform control and joviality. I perform prayerful poise. She performs at the casket, kneels with her hands perfectly clasped, her mother's corpse in front of her. Both of us, calmly pristine, lying, both of us.
Wow, beautiful.
And I'll close with this last poem, since that was a little bit longer. A child witnesses his birth. Actually, yeah, I'll read that one. Mother said, we are not supposed to live forever. Mother said, women open the dead gates. Mother said, we make the body brave. We carry, but we are supposed to go to. Mother said, all vessels break, atoms collide, and here birth new spheres, a pulsar set in a chest. Mother said, make way and return, and to water be water. Mother said, the child. Mother said, I will give him life, not my loss. Mother said, come, come, come. I turn and set my head to light, hushing darkness through reddening to a golden burn. Angel, kiss my left eyelid. Stork, release this neck. The child pushes root nest. The midwife brushes his hair. The child bathes in mother. Rush out spirit cordage for push. She says a name. It is my name. Bloody and firmed. Mother says light. Light. Mother says feed. God. Oh God. This body. Yeah.
Wow. Beautiful. Raina, your work is fantastic. Thank you for that. It's very spiritual.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very
much. Very, very much so. And so, Raina, can you please tell us where can we best support you for your new work, Black God, Mother This Body. Where can we find your new book?
Yes. So you can find it directly at the publisher, Black Freighter Press. It should actually be on Amazon by next week. So that should be fun if you are into your instant gratification.
Exactly.
And must find your things through the Amazon monster.
Yes.
But you can buy direct from the publisher. Folks can find me on all the things with Raina León. I'm on IG. I'm on Twitter. I'm on the TikTok too.
Oh, you're on the TikTok. Okay, we're gonna find you on the TikTok.
I have fun with those filters every now and then.
Yes. And so, Raina, do you have any events coming up that folks can attend, particularly, either in person or even virtual?
Absolutely. So, in person, I'm going to be at Paul Robeson House on the 29th of November, actually with Joel Diaz-Porter.
Whoa, where is that? Can you tell where that is?
Yeah, that's in Philadelphia.
Okay.
As well as with Kerwin Sutherland, so we're going to be reading together. Everyone can find. Oh yeah, I'm going to be at the Miami Book Festival in about a week, so the 20th.
Oh wow, that's awesome!
And that'll be in person as well as virtual. And then after that, I am taking a little break until February 2nd, where I'll be in Chicago in person as well as virtual, with the Poetry Foundation, promoting Latinx Poetics, which is an anthology that I'm in.
Awesome. Do you think that you will be at AWP spring 2023?
I will be there. Absolutely.
Awesome.
AWP.
That's so awesome. Well, Raina, thank you so much. It's been an absolute joy to talk with you today. And I'm so excited about your new work and excited to be able to hear some of your poems and just, talk to you about your writing life and all of the wonderful involved in. And so I just want to say that I wish you all the best, and I will continue to follow you and, in general, keep up with your work and new things that you're doing.
Thank you so much for the invitation. And I have loved listening to the podcast. Nerdacity has so many incredible guests. So I've just been learning so much from folks like Willie Perdomo and Joel Diaz-Porter and Tony Medina and Ramika. It's just been wonderful to be in this conversation with you, and also to be a part of an extended conversation with them.
It's amazing. Thank you so much, Raina. Well, take care of yourself and best wishes. You were just listening to episode 46 of Nerdacity Podcast, hosted by yours truly, DuEwa Frazier, and featuring poet, professor, teacher educator, and visual artist, Raina J. León. She is the author of the new book, Black God, Mother This Body. I hope you'll pick up a copy of her book and also visit her website at rainaleon.com. Follow Nerdacity on Instagram at Nerdacity Podcast. You can also tweet me and follow Nerdacity on Twitter at NerdacityPod1. I hope you'll also follow or fan and like Nerdacity Podcast on Facebook. Yep, we have a new Facebook page. And if you'd like to support future episodes, visit anchor.fm/DuEwa Frazier/support. And last but not least, visit my author and artist website, DuEwaFrazier.com or DuEwaWorld.com. Thanks so much for listening. Take care.